This is Golden Years, a roadmap to navigate retirement with Mark Cordner, the podcast.
This may actually be the headline you've been waiting for. It's from USA Today. They say, maybe you don't need $1 million to retire after all. The article goes on to note that 97% of Americans have less than $1 million saved, and 82% of retirees say they have enough money and they're happy in retirement. And this next point here, retirees with limited savings have less room for error, meaning a single unexpected expense could put their financial stability at risk. So, Mark, this is where you come in. Does this reinforce the idea that retirement is more about just having a plan and then, reaching a magic number?
Absolutely. Oh, heavens, absolutely. Yes. I mean, I always say everyone can retire if they're willing to live on what they have. And so that's the big question. I mean, I have some people who come to me and say, they got to have $15,000, $20,000 a month just to survive. And other people, look sideways when I say that or relate that because they're thinking, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month may be sufficient. And so it really depends on their expectations. My dream is to eventually disappear into the library for the last years of my life because that's what I enjoy. And frankly, the public libraries and the university near my home, they don't cost anything. But that's a lot different than people who are cruising 5-6 times a year. My twin brother goes on quarterly cruises. If that's the thing you like, that's not my thing, but if that's the thing you like, it costs a bit. So we really got to know what your expectations are. Most of the people I work with do not need $1 million, but I work with a lot of people who work out here at the atomic energy test site, and they have pensions. So if you have a pension, that makes a world of difference. Most Americans don't have pensions, so like 7% of Americans do. So we got to look at all your different income sources. Do you have a pension? Where are you at on Social Security? Are you expecting an inheritance, for example? Is there rental property income or other assets? Remember, retirement is not about assets. It's about income. And so if you have assets but not income, we got to find a way to convert the two. So is $1 million enough? I'm not going to give a flat answer to that. I think it depends on each individual. So that's exactly why we invite people to come in and have a conversation with us. Are you ready for retirement? Are you ready? It's not who has the most toys at the end of the day. It's who has the income they need to sustain their expectations. What are your expectations? What are your income and other resources? That's the inventory we need to do. So we invite people in for a retirement readiness conversation because that's, at the end of the day, what it's about. We don't want to leap off of the employment train before we know that we've got something sturdy to land on.
And you mentioned income here. We know income is really the ingredient to having a successful retirement. It's all about income, and income. Remember, everybody's income plan, their retirement plan is going to be different. There's no cookie-cutter approach here. It all begins, though, with that retirement roadmap that you hear us talking about. 702-996-4050, 702-996-4050. You mentioned Social Security just a few moments ago, and believe it or not, it's been 43 years since Congress had really touched Social Security, and now, big shocker, it's got problems. In about 6 years, the trust fund says it's going to run dry, which means benefits could be cut by roughly 23%. And back in 2005, lawmakers had a chance to fix it by raising the tax just 2%. That would have kept the system funded for 75 years. They passed on this, too. And in 2015, that fix jumped to 3%. And again, nothing. Today, it's closer to 4%. And believe it or not, they're still sitting there doing nothing. So Social Security can feel like a guaranteed paycheck in retirement. And if that paycheck shrinks, what are some other reliable income sources do you look at, and how do you decide which ones make sense for each individual?
Well, there's a number of things we look at. Before I get to those reliable income sources, let me just say this, that right now we are electing into the Senate people who will be serving over the next 6 years who will have to deal with this. You've made a great historical observation here, and that is that our politicians have been spineless, frankly. They have not dealt. They keep kicking the can down the road. The current administration has said they're not going to deal with these entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare. But those being elected to the Senate now will have to deal with this during the next 6 years. We are exactly in the position you described of 1983, 43 years ago. I remember this. I was in high school, and I remember when Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan came together because Social Security they were in fear of it going under. They made this great compromise. That's when they deferred the full retirement age from 65 progressively to 67. That's when they introduced the taxation of Social Security benefits. They're going to have to do those same things now. They're going to have to push back the full retirement age of Social Security. So it's going to go from 67, I'm certain, to 70 or more. When it was introduced in 1935, they only expected people to claim Social Security for 2 or 3 years and then pass away. Now people are expecting to claim on it for 2 to 3 decades. And so, yes, there are cuts coming. Generally, they talk about those cuts happening to people under the age of 50. At least that's been the case in the past. They don't want to harm the people who are really close to claiming. But this time around, the scale of the problem is massively more than it was back in 1983. I was just in Scottsdale at a conference talking to a Social Security specialist one-on-one about this. The scale of the problem right now is massively more. So, to answer your question, where do people go for income? Well, some people go to real estate. They become landlords, but that's a total pain for many of us in retirement. I'm trying to get rid of my rentals because I'm a lousy landlord. But real estate can be a great source for many people. There are alternative investments they can look at, structured notes, for example. Certainly, one of the most powerful tools is what the insurance industry has in the form of annuities, particularly income contracts. We can show people how to get twice as much income out of an income annuity as they would reliably be able to get out of a typical mutual fund-based type of account. And I can't say that categorically, but in most cases that's very much the case. And so if people want contractually guaranteed income sources to supplement Social Security, they should look at that. Matter of fact, this guy I was talking to in Scottsdale, there's a particular insurance company that's developed a program now that says if Social Security gets cut more than 3%, then there's a trigger built into this particular annuity product that says we are going to fill the gap. They call it a plan gap. Really interesting feature because private industry realizes that the government has just been too weak-kneed on these issues, and we as general citizens of this wonderful republic have got to realize we cannot depend on the government to take care of us. We've got to take these issues into our own hands. So I say come visit with us, folks. If these ideas scare you a little bit, they should, but there are solutions, so we don't have to stay scared. There are absolutely solutions that we can implement to improve people's situations. Come visit with us, and we can help you with that.
It's so simple. You just call and you say, get me on the list. I want to sit down with Mark and discuss my financial future and maybe put together this retirement roadmap with him. That phone number, 702-996-4050, 702-996-4050. The website, mygoldenyearsroadmap.com. So if you are fed up with work and you're really considering retiring early, let me give you some stats that may give you the nudge that you need. Number one, if you work 40 hours a week over your lifetime, you'll spend 90,000 hours working. Number two, nearly half believe work is literally making them sick. 2 in 3, that's about 77%, say that it's giving a negative effect on their mental health. And number 3 here, a metric called HALE, which is health life expectancy, is indicating that you'll likely experience a health issue, maybe even a serious one, by the age of 64. Wow. So when clients are considering a retirement age and even retiring early, is it usually forced on them or is it more voluntary?
That's an interesting one. 58%, the studies suggest 58% of Americans retire earlier than expected for reasons entirely beyond their control. Sometimes it's their personal health. Sometimes it's a family member's health. Sometimes it's a loss of a job. Sometimes it's the need to care for, parents who are aging, for example. There's a variety of reasons why people end up retiring earlier than expected. Right now, the average retirement age is 62. I don't know that that's the best financially speaking for most Americans, but circumstances put them in that situation. And so it's a difficult thing. There's not a one-size-fits-all answer. I know my doctor's told me he wishes I would scale back. I tell him, look, I love what I do, but better to die productive than to die on your couch kind of thing. But everyone's got to look at this very seriously. We've got to look at issues like our personal health. We've got to look at issues like our family members' health and then put our plans in place accordingly. And sometimes that means living on less now than we currently are so that we can save for the future. Because if you get displaced from work in your early 60s, it's often hard to get back in at a comparable wage. And so, maybe it's part-time work at Lowe's or Hobby Lobby or whatever it is. But again, this all goes back to my invitation to people. come do a retirement readiness analysis with us. Let's see where you're at. Let's see what changes you can make. Often there's some simple changes that people simply don't know about that can dramatically safeguard them. So come visit with us. Come to our classes.
Yeah, listen, I was just going to say, if Mark wasn't doing this, he loves educating individuals and giving them that empowerment over their retirement. So we have classes locally. We can get you those dates, or they might be on the website, or give us a call. And if you'd like to set up a Zoom, we'll do that. And of course, we'd love to have you come in person. 702-996-4050, 702-996-4050. On top of the inflation that we're seeing in the grocery store and elsewhere, we are also all feeling the pinch of higher gas prices. And it's not just the fill up. When energy gets more expensive, it shows up everywhere else, right? And that feeds inflation. If you need more of an explanation, here's our pal, Billy Bob Thornton. That's his character on the Paramount Plus TV show Landman.
You want oil to live above 60 but below 90. And don't get me wrong, we're still printing money at 90, but gas gets up over $3.50 a gallon, it starts to pinch. It hits 100, every product in America has to readjust its price. $78 a barrel, that's about perfect. It brings enough profit to keep exploring, but it don't sting as much at the pump. Unless, of course, you're in California. They tax the out of it out there.
I mean, he's not wrong about that. Well, listen, how do you design an income plan so a stretch like this doesn't force people into bigger withdrawals or bad timing decisions and everything?
Well, I'm a big fan of having as much money as we can in the market so that it's growing and outpacing inflation, because we can't predict inflation. My wife just came down to visit from Utah, and she was complaining about it's $1 plus more a gallon in Nevada than it is in Utah. And so there's some things you just can't anticipate. So I believe that every dollar invested needs to have a purpose. And so after we've dealt with income planning, after we've dealt with healthcare planning, we want to put as much as we can growing in accounts that can outpace inflation. So if inflation historically has been in the 3-4% range, we've got to get more than that on the investments. And so we need to have money in the market. People sometimes have to get comfortable with what they may not naturally be comfortable with, but that has to be after we have prioritized income planning and healthcare planning, because we got to have groceries and we got to deal with whatever medical issues arise. So again, that's all about visiting with us. It's not all about rate of return. It's about planning for things like income and health care that have just absolutely got to be dealt with. Housing considerations, there's a number of issues there, but come visit with us. Again, folks, inflation is a big deal. It's what wipes people out, and it's what people forget. Just because you have enough income on day one of retirement doesn't mean it's going to be sufficient on year 20 of retirement. It may be half what you need at that point.
You got to make sure your money's working for you, and this is what these conversations are all about. And it's also about updating your plan as much as possible, too, or as much as you want to. Because, listen, things change in the retirement world as far as rules, regulations. Things change in your life, and those things are usually going to impact that income and that comfortability as well. And that phone number, 702-996-4050, 702-996-4050. So as we age, about 70% of us are going to need some kind of care at some point. The challenge is our healthcare system just isn't ready for the so-called silver tsunami. There's just not enough nurses or even beds. And when a lot of people need something that's in short supply, what do you think happens? Well, the price goes up, right? Supply and demand. So what does long-term care cost in our area right now? How much is it? And are you planning for those costs to keep rising?
Well, I absolutely am planning for it. This is a major part of my conversations with clients, because 3 out of 4 Americans are going to need some kinds of hands-on assistance. And we're talking about the non-skilled custodial care, things like dressing, eating, bathing, toileting, help with these kind of things. Medicare will cover the skilled medical costs, but not the non-skilled cost. And right now in Vegas, the costs are averaging $90,000 to $95,000 a year, average. And so that means some people are paying more than that, some people are paying less than that. How are we going to deal with it? Well, we need immigrants. We need more workers. I can think just a mile from my office here is a really nice community where there's a whole lot of undocumented workers who I know for a fact, I know some of them by name, individually, personally, who are providing care for people because cash speaks. And so you're going to have money to pay for this care. Some people are even moving to get to less expensive care options. Some people are going to other countries like Costa Rica and Portugal and Mexico because a dollar goes a lot further there. So I would just say, if you haven't dealt with this, and statistically literally 97% of Americans have not planned for long-term care, come visit with us as soon as possible, because we got to make sure your money lasts for this. This is about your dignity, but it's also about protecting our family members. They're the ones who go through the living hell of having to care for us when that day comes that we're dealing with dementia or frailty or whatever it is that God's letting us experience. So come visit with us. We can help you. We need to not only be dealing with income planning and tax-saving strategies, but we've got to deal with health care, because housing and health care are the two biggest expenses in retirement. Housing is easy to quantify, health care is not. And so we absolutely are having conversations with people about the uninsured expense known as long-term care. There has to be money earmarked for that, and typically it's to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars for most couples. Where is that money going to come from? So that it doesn't bankrupt the family, it doesn't leave the surviving spouse without income. Come visit with us. We'll take you through a process where we absolutely will address these things, and we'll show you how to take what you have and make it better.
Investment advisory services offered through Golden Years Financial LLC, a registered investment advisory firm. Insurance is offered through Golden Years Insurance Services. These firms do not provide legal or tax advice. Consult your own legal and tax advisors before taking actions that may have tax implications. Investing in securities involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Insurance contracts principal protection is based on the claim-paying ability of the respective insurer. None of the information contained on this website shall constitute an offer to sell or solicit to buy a security or insurance product. The information and opinions contained on this site or requested from this site are provided by third parties believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. They are provided for informational purposes only and are not a solicitation to buy or sell any of the products mentioned. Any media logos and or trademarks contained herein are the property of their respective owners, and no endorsement by those owners of Mark Cordner, Golden Years Financial, or Golden Years Insurance is stated or implied.